got some huge news. Look, it was a great break until probably Sunday or Saturday for me. I'm just sitting back, enjoying my whole fucking break, going, how good's life? Broncos premierships next couple of years, of course, young, good team, all the drama behind us, and then, boom, nuke drops into my phone. Selwyn Cobbo's comments about Kevy Walters that were said on a podcast, I think it was October last year. Now, some people might say, oh, it's just the media dragging it up. Maybe that's true. It doesn't change the fact that it was said. It was said on a public forum. It was said about a coach. Now, obviously, I've got plenty to say about this, but as a former Bronco, but, yes, I'm a former Bronco, but I see myself more as a fan of the Broncos now. It's been so many years. It sucks. It really sucks to see your next superstar, unfortunately say those things publicly. Not that he has that opinion. I'll get into it further. Now, he's come out and said it was just a silly joke. Look, I respect Selwyn and having to, there's certain things you have to do at work to appease certain people and all that kind of stuff, and I understand it. But like, if you watch the clip, it doesn't seem to me like it was a joke, in my opinion. And maybe it was a joke and he just delivered it incorrectly. But I've watched the clip and I think that there's a bit where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, I don't know whether the fire is still going, but there's no denying there was fire at the end of last year. But I'll give my deeper thoughts on it first. Gurino. Can't even say it properly anymore. I'm that rattled, Guru, what's going on?
Yeah.
Guru, what do you reckon, mate?
It's tough to watch, mate. Obviously, Selwyn came out and said it was taken out of context. The clips I watched, it's a tough argument.
Look, as I said, I feel disrespectful by saying different to what he's saying.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you watch that clip, I didn't take it as a joke or out of context.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy's young. There's a heap of excuses, but you've just got to be fucking better. You got to be smarter than that. Whether you're a footballer, whatever you are, you don't go onto a public forum and bash your boss like that. It just makes no sense whatsoever. I'm a little bit worried about your Broncos now, just quietly.
Yeah, just loudly. I am too, very loudly. Timmy, I'll get your thoughts first, and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, you can't go public in any industry in the world and just bash your boss like that. And it's the timing of it is, for obvious reasons, so poor. We're just about to go into the start of the trial games of 2023. And, it happened in October last year. Had it come out then when they had this, what seemed to be off-field dramas because they capitulated at the back end of the year, it would have been like, it just would have added to it then, and it would have been like, all right, done, out of the way by Christmas, New Year. We go into 23, fresh start. It was recorded, obviously, last year, but it's fresh now. Yeah. And for that, how they're starting their 2023, the Broncos, Selwyn, he's had a bit of a Barry Crocker in this one. And, the Bronx, there's something going on there. And, like, as someone who's happy to see Brisbane not do that well as a proud New South Welshman, even I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to feel sorry for the Broncos and a few of these things happening because you don't want them starting the year like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially Selwyn is a superstar in the making. Like, he's not there yet because he hasn't achieved it, but like his trajectory is on that route. I will say there are some, worrying signs in regards to, I guess, him being so young at the moment and handling that superstar. But yeah, look, obviously, as a former Bronco, the interesting thing about these is that, like, in every workplace, whether it's footy, whether it's, you're a tradie or you work in an office, people talk about and have their opinions on their boss. And they talk about whether they're good or whether they're bad. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong if Selwyn is playing for Kevy and he just doesn't feel that he is a good coach, even though I would say he's too young to make that call. Even if you felt that way, there's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to have an opinion on people that work with you. The concern I have is, first of all, you're right, Guru. Yes, he's young, but like, come on. That is, you cannot say that publicly. People say they're comfortable on a podcast, rah. You still know there's a microphone in front of you. You still know this is going out in public. So there's that. And look, if that was in isolation, let's say he said something else that was different to, the coach, I don't think he's a good coach or whatever, I would be like, look, one stuff up, he just said it, he's young. The real concern for me is why is he comfortable enough to say that? How many conversations are happening internally between young players or older players or whoever it is, where two people now are so comfortable in saying that the coach, I would be, as a young guy coming through, scared shitless to say anything like that out loud to anyone outside of my close, like, you know, your closer teammates. And so my real concern of the Broncos right now is that one guy could just be a disgruntled player. Two guys now coming out and publicly saying that, yes, it was around the same time, and maybe they have patched things up since then, but it's a sign of this is something that, in my opinion, senior players can stop. If you've got a senior playing group, the amount of times that I would walk into training and there'd be Corey Parker and your Lockyer and your Hodjo and all these people, and like, we may have been unfairly treated or whatever. Like, we may have been unfairly treated, and I'm sooking and the younger guys are sooking and we start, you know, sooking to each other. The amount of times, like, the boys, whereas Corey, Hodjo, Lockyer or whatever, would be like, oi, shut up. Doesn't matter how you feel about it. That's the decision that's been made. And that's the direction we're going. And you knew as a young guy that they agreed with you, but you also knew is that it doesn't matter. The decision has been made. This is what we are doing, and we follow it and we work it out later. And I think that the concern at the Broncos at the moment is that there's no, and I've said this for years now, so I know a lot of Broncos fans will be, I guess, overhearing it, but the older group of players have the power to rein this in. There's no, put it this way, there's no way, in my opinion, if there was older senior players that were very strong senior playing group, if they heard wind of the younger guys talking like that, even if they agreed with younger guys, they'd be like, guys, do not talk like that, because that isn't helping anyone. He's our coach. He's signed for the next couple of years. So that's my biggest concern, is how comfortable they are in saying that at a club that, you know.
And just add another layer to it, like how comfortable he is. That was in October. How has he slept every night knowing that's out there? Oh. It's a matter of fucking time until someone finds that.
Yeah.
I find it unbelievable that it's been sitting there for so long, and he's sweet.
Like, not asked to take it down. Maybe he did ask to take it down, but like, yeah, again, it's really, really concerning. Like, this is, I'm really concerned for the Broncos at the moment. I can see, because you can come out all you want and say, oh, you know, we're all good now, we're this, that, the next thing. Like, are we really? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to point out, it's kind of interesting that the whole Tyson Gamble podcast thing happened probably a month before that as well. So Selwyn would have seen all that unfold, and then a month later, he's on a podcast saying pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, well, the guy in the podcast, when he asked Selwyn, I'm pretty sure he brings up the Tyson situation. And so it's real concerns, because you might say, oh, look, it's all sorted, right? Reece Walsh incident on the weekend. There's another incident with one of the players who was allegedly involved in, you know, something pretty poor. Again, I don't want to talk about it because we don't know the case and what's happening, and the police are taking care of it. Then you've obviously got some more personal issues with some of their biggest players. Don't want to go into that because it has, you know. But put it this way, there is a lot of turbulence at the Broncos right now.
And I also think that, you know, as much as, you know, you're talking about the coach like that, this is also one of the Broncos' greatest players of all time.
Yeah.
Like, there would be guys that, you know, have probably, you know, the people would say are better players than Kevin Walters, but I think he's featured in every single premiership except for 2006.
Oh, yeah. What, 5 premierships?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I will say, I mean, he still shouldn't have said it for sure, but I will say in Cobbo's defence, at the very least, he did acknowledge, like, he's a great player of the past, rah. But you're right, though, like, regardless, even if you do say that, then don't say the next bit. So anyway, the quote was, he's a good person, like a good bloke, but I don't think he's a good coach. He's not the best coach, but he's all right. And for people thinking, oh, it's just a quote, you hear it differently when you watch it, go and watch it. It doesn't...
I think it sounds worse from him than when you read it.
Yeah, it's not... It's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. Timmy, what do you reckon? Do you think that there's a concern... You know, because you might say, okay, well, Penrith Panthers don't have an older senior playing group to a degree. Like, maybe you could consider Fisher Harris and Isaiah Yeo a bit older. Do you think the concern stems into the fact that this senior playing group aren't nipping this in the butt?
It's funny. It was the exact point I was going to bring up off the back of what you've just said about the playing group. And you look at it and you go, are they lacking the senior playing group? So they've got Adam Reynolds, who's obviously sort of such a proud leader of this club, who's been there for one season. Outside of Adam Reynolds, you've got Paddy Carrigan, who's another leader, but he's also 25 years old, very new to the role of being, you know, as a part of this leadership group. Outside of that, you've got Corey Oates, who's been there a while, a bit longer, but he's a winger. No one listens to wingers anyway, so it's irrelevant.
True.
Outside of that, though, like, it is a young squad. It is a young leadership group. While this might only be one concern for them in a broader spectrum of issues at the Broncos, are they lacking that senior playing group that you speak about so often? Because to me, it looks like they are.
Oh, for sure. Like, you think if Adam Reynolds, you know, didn't speak to Selwyn before that interview, you think Adam Reynolds wouldn't have been like, bro, regardless if you think that, don't say anything publicly. Of course, that's the advice Adam Reynolds would give. And also, the advice Adam Reynolds would give was like, it doesn't matter, he's our coach. We need to go in the same direction. You know, I've told this story ad nauseum, but just for people that are, I guess, newer to the podcast, 2008, we're playing really well. Then we had a couple of bad games. Wayne Bennett calls us all into the team meeting and basically says, boys, if you don't feel that this is the year that we can win the comp, let me know and we can plan Mad Monday. We can plan our away trip. He said, I don't care what we do as long as we do it together. And that is an example of, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with someone, you all have to be on the same page because you're in it together. At the end of the day, there's no other coach. He signed there. He's not getting the sack before the season starts. You know, we assume. Really, really concerning. Anything else on the situation? And look, again, this is more me being disappointed at the state of the Broncos rather than Cobbo, in the sense that, yes, I'm disappointed that Cobbo said it, for sure. But young people make mistakes. And it's like, you know, Cobbo is quite a young player. It's not like he went out and did something, you know what I mean, horrible that we'd all say, oh, I condemn him. You know, he said his opinion on the wrong space. He's quite young, not that well media trained yet. And so it's more about a reflection of like what's happening internally for people to be saying that publicly.
In the grand scheme of issues in NRL, this is the smallest blip on the radar. It's like it'll blow over. It's not that dramatic. But in terms of this, what is seemingly becoming a bit more of a sort of toxic culture leaking at Red Hill, it's a sign of that, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Cobbo himself, as I said, it'll blow over. It's all good. Yeah. But what the hell's going on at the Broncos?
Oh, mate.
Did you guys hear the other comments that he said in the podcast about
how he walked out?
Yeah.
Again, young man, 18, 19 years old. They're getting beaten, and he wants to go home early. Look, it's not good. How many of us have snuck out of work things when we were younger, or didn't turn up to certain things we should have, and all that kind of stuff? So again, that in isolation is just like, yep, slap on the wrist, give him a fine, move on. But when you add it to everything else, you start going, holy heckers, like what is happening up there?
Especially when, you know, so an incredibly talented footballer, very young, like, he's already played 3 Origins. I mean, we were sitting here at the start of last year going, will he be in the team? Will he not? Is he ready? Like, Kevin Walters backed him in at the start of the year, gave him every opportunity he possibly could. I don't know. The more you think about it, the less sense it makes.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's being talked about a lot. And you, as a young player, you're just absorbing everything. You're so new to it. The bright lights, you don't know what's going on. You're absorbing it, and it wasn't nipped in the butt quick enough for it to stop permeating. Because we know there are other players in that squad that feel the same, like that feel that Kevy, you know. Well, I don't know if we still do, but like if 2 have come out, and you know, there's been kind of whispers about certain other players, you know, feeling like they don't think that Kevy is the best coach. I just think that I hate to be the guy that's like, back in my day, because it was different. It was on social media, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, as a young fella, I was never sitting there having an opinion on like what the coach thinks about anything.
I don't think there will ever be a day where that'll be fair play to come out and rag your coach like that.
So many young players, like where is this confidence like you put your head down, and Selwyn, his confidence, what makes him so great. But I don't know. I just kind of always felt like I'm not a senior player. I have no right to say any of that stuff. I put my head down and do my job, and we get on with it. And that's easy for me to say. I came through in the best years. So, you know, when you're winning, none of this stuff happens. When you're losing, obviously this stuff happens. But I don't know.
The Broncos were winning though. I know Cobbo's was after the capitulation. But
you're right. So So look, a stuff up by Selwyn, not the end of the world, but it could be the end of the world for the Broncos in the sense when you're talking about a season getting off to a rocky start. We'll talk quickly about the Reece Walsh thing. Again, in isolation, not an issue. You know, I mean, not an issue. Like, you shouldn't handle yourself like that. Any man, whether you're a professional or not a professional, you don't handle yourself like that. You control your emotions and you sort it out rationally. And we're all being guilty of losing our head. But anyway, the problem with Walsh thing is like, bro, after all, you know, the stuff that you've had happen off field, you've got a responsibility to your club, to your fit. Like, you cannot afford to put yourselves in situations where this happens, because even though it's a nothing thing, it would only be a nothing thing if you didn't have those pre-existing dramas that you've had. Then it would, if you didn't have that, it would be a nothing thing. We wouldn't be talking about it. But this is just adds on to what the club doesn't need right now. So again, isolation, it's a nothing thing. But he just needs to be a little bit smarter, Reece Walsh, in my opinion.
Yeah, they all build up, and then when you get the Selwyn thing on top, it's a domino effect of everything that's happened in the past.
Yeah, craziness, crazy, and like step into Fafita, bro. I don't know about. I mean, I love the fight and the dog. Yeah. I love it, but this might be one that you just want to hard pass. Thoughts on the Reece Walsh thing, Timmy?
Yeah, another thing you said, it all just builds up. And Reece Walsh has a long career ahead of him, and lots of experienced players with longevity in the NRL, they manage to avoid even the smallest of incidents. And I look at someone like Adam Reynolds, that the leader in the group, his whole career, it's been seemingly flawless off the field. And I said, it's not a big incident, but he's going to have to learn to get himself out of these situations as quick as he can, because you don't want them building up on a personal level either.
And also, you begin to become a target then.
Yep.
Because you're out. People know he's got a little snap in him. He's got all this in him. And before you know it, everyone's egging you on because they want to. The phone comes out. They want to be the one that goes viral. Oh, Reece Walsh tried to fight my mate or whatever. Or I knocked out Reece Walsh. You know what I mean? Like, you already have to deal with that anyway as a footy player of blokes wanting to test themselves against you. Add on to the fact you're starting to become a bit of a rogue. It's just like...
Add on to the fact you're as good looking as he is.
Yeah, which is like... You walk into a club, you already want to get punched by every bloke there because he's like, I just lost my missus. Maybe Fafita said that his eyelashes weren't as good as they were, and that's what Reece Walsh was.
Your looks are overrated.
Yeah, you're overrated, overrated looks, bruh, and that's what set him off, which I can understand actually.
Fair play.
I take everything back, Reece. You're in the right. How dare you question his good lookingness? So look, the Brisbane Broncos. If anyone to sit here and say there isn't concerns up there at the moment, I think that's craziness. I really do. I'm very concerned about what's going on up there. Tessie New just left to the Dolphins. It has not been a quiet off season for the Brisbane Broncos at all.
If they don't do well this year, where does that leave Kev?
I think that it's a matter of the target is on his back now because. Two players have said it publicly, then it becomes, he can't. There'll be a section of people that go, he can't coach. I would hope that they could. The thing is you can always make certain things work, and let's say he's not the best communicator or whatever, you can always bring in assistant coaches to fill that hole, and Kevy can be the motivator and the guy that knows what the club culture is all about. And that's the thing that I really thought, and I felt like he did last year. He really brought back that culture of old, of just high elite level winners. And then obviously we fell off at the back end, but anyway, so yeah, very, very concerning. It'll blow over Cobbo. In Cobbo's career, this will be, you won't even think about it in 5 to 6 years' time. He's got an incredible career in front of him. He is very, very young. Even this guy's from a small community. It's when the bright lights hit you and you're from a place where you're just not used to that. You're used to where you're just talking like people. So even though it's never on, he still is really young, and we all make mistakes when we're young. So he'll learn from it.
On the bright side with him, I saw some photos of him training the other day. Looks like he's starting to
bro,
pick out a little bit.
Holy heckers, he is. if as long as he applies himself and trains and just applies himself physically, he'll just be whatever he wants to be. Like whatever he wants to be in this game, he can be that. I did find it interesting. Even in the podcast, he said A, he wanted to play fullback. B, he'd be training at fullback for the off season, and this was after Reece Walsh had signed. And he actually even said, I think Reece will play in the halves. And I was like, what? No, surely not. But this is before the preseason, so maybe he's just, again, he may be just a young man that just talks and he's not thinking about the weight of what he's saying.
Which is what I find it unbelievable that after that he didn't get home and go, fuck.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I've had them on my podcast. Guys have said something. I've gone, oh fuck, that'll be interesting. And I text them later and go, hey, are you sure? And they go, oh, actually better not.
Yeah.
Better pull back from that.
Yeah, that's something like, anyone that has a podcast or wants to start a podcast, there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking a question and getting an answer. And if that's what your mode of thinking, for sure, like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a podcaster like me, where you're more about, you want the player to be comfortable, where they can say whatever they want, but they also have the right to go, you know what, like probably not the right time to talk about contracts because I'm about to come up to contract talk or whatever it is. You almost sometimes have to, because they're giving you the benefit of dropping their guard, you've got to give them the benefit of going, well, because it's not a professional environment, they may say things that A, they don't mean, B, it's too red hot right now or whatever. So I guess as a podcaster, sometimes you just got to ask yourself what you'd rather be. Do you want to be, when you come on the podcast, whatever you say goes up? Or do you want to be, no, this is more about hearing about your journey, your career, and I don't want you to feel like once you've said something, you can never take it back or whatever. But yeah, so disappointing, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Hopefully they can turn it around. Benny Eichen was down at training the other day, so it looks like I'm hoping the Benny Eichen Walters situation has chilled out. The Broncos are in such an interesting spot because it's like going into this year, if you had have asked before 5-6 rounds of last year, you would have said these guys are going to be, they could be the next Penrith. That's where they're tracking to with this young squad. Now going into, after seeing all the drama, I'd assume a lot of people are saying they'll probably miss the 8 with the right now. If you
I
would
was
ask
about
them.
to say to you, we spoke about them as a top 6, potentially top 4 team only 6 weeks ago. I don't have them in my 8 at the moment.
Right now, like with all the drama and that. And again, it's a long off season, but very concerning, very concerning.